Hi, everyone. Welcome to this episode of Beyond Max Q. I'm joined today with Drew Busbee, who is the Chief Operating Officer for DTI. He also, to be clear, is doing quite a few things, but he's very well connected in the non-dilutive capital space, in all things government contracts, military, DoD, space works, you name it. He's involved in it. And so I'm really excited to have him here today to kind of talk through some of that and what it looks like for founders. So with that, Drew, please take it away. Introduce yourself.
Sweet, sure. I'm the dude doing the thing. My name is Drew Busbee, call sign Murph. If you want the story behind that, you have to buy me a beer. That's how that works. Free beer at industry mixers do not count. You have to buy it. It has to be a transaction. Full stomp on that one. Brief synopsis of me. I did almost 9 years active duty across the Air Force and Space Force. I was a 13 in, so I was a nuke bubba. Did that mission for a bit, and then came over to the acquisition side of the house. Very, very non-traditional acquisitions officer career. Spent most of my time doing government intrapreneurship, so basically building stuff within the government, different programs, offices, things like that. I'm one of the original founding 3 members of SpaceWorks, which is the innovation arm of the U.S. Space Force. Started that as part of what was called the Portfolio Architect Mission Innovation. Had a $0 budget. We had to beg, borrow, and steal just to get. About 9 months later, we executed Air Force Space Pitch Day, did $47 million, same day contract, same day award, same day payment, literally swiping a credit card on the spot for companies that were successfully pitching PEOs or program offices. Did that for a bit, built another thing called the SSE Front Door. Spent a lot of time working this intersection between private capital, government, a startup. I don't know if I can make it easy, but I try to make it as simple as possible to help folks navigate, understand like where the real kind of information is, or how you can kind of navigate this ecosystem in the best way. Got out of the military over at DTI, started as a program manager with the idea of launching our accelerator program. So that was about 2 years ago. So our accelerator program, I2A, it's non-equity based. There's no charge. There's nothing like that. We don't take a stake in you, but the catch is you have to come through the SpaceWorks challenges. So DTI is an organization. We exist through what is called a PIA, Partnership Intermediary Agreement with SpaceWorks, which is the innovation arm of the U.S. Space Force. I2A as a program is a 12-week, very dedicated, very high-touch program in helping you grow and scale and everything that you need to be successful in working with the government. It's sourced directly from startups that we've seen transition. It's a constantly evolving curriculum. And even when you graduate, we continue to take care of you. That program to date has done $1.62 billion in follow-on government contracts, $1.7 billion in private capital across 56 portfolio companies. As a nonprofit, we do a ton of education and outreach. So I host Launchpad sessions. I like to argue, don't quote me, but I like to argue that I can get you your first year of BD in about an hour if you're a brand new firm, helping you to understand how to successfully navigate SBIR, STTR in that process. We do a ton of work with the state of California. I work with companies everywhere, but
Are you in California?
I am. I'm in El Segundo. Full transparency, I will leverage the vacation effect if you come see me in person, because California likes that, and I like California, so I may try to convince you to start your business here. But we do work with companies everywhere. We lead multiple fronts on the civic side, including California Jobs First, really leading the aerospace and defense cluster. So that's kind of us and me in a nutshell.
I mean, that's a lot.
That's a
There's
lot.
so much to unpack. I feel like I would love to dive into some of the
Yeah.
stuff that you talk through, like at the very beginning, like, okay, I'm in the aerospace industry and I'm starting to look at government contracts. How do you get started?
That's a great question. So very, very first thing I would tell a founder to do is you need to make sure you're solving a problem, and that's not like groundbreaking, in startup land of solve a problem, but you need to make sure that you're solving a problem because our incentives, are here being the royal R, federal government. Our incentives are a little bit different. Just because you're better, faster, cheaper, does not necessarily mean that it is an attractive opportunity. It is how are you delivering more capability so that we can conduct our mission set? I say that because we're fielding battleships from World War II. Like, of course, yes, we're making updates and all those other things, but like those things are solving the capability of the mission. If your battleship is better, faster, cheaper, are you adding more value? So first and foremost, I would recommend that you start with that. Secondly, I would start igniting your customer discovery engine. So that's a lot of what I teach about. But you need to be going out there and actually outreaching and actually starting to do customer discovery interviews before you even start pitching or understanding what that particular thing you're trying to build might actually look like. The
Yeah.
reason for that is you may quickly find that what you're offering does not align to what we are trying to go or where we're trying to go. And so you can pivot it, you can change it, things like that. Or, as someone who deals in space, very heavily, like if you're saying we're gonna land on Pluto, like that's a ways off, so it might
I
not be
still
the
feel
right
like that's a
time.
planet. I know people
Yeah.
decided it wasn't, but I mean, I'm still a little
It's
salty
it's a
about it.
planet. When I was in school as a planet, it's a planet.
That's what I'm saying.
But but yeah, like if you're gonna go out there and you're saying, "Hey, I'm building this," like you want to make sure you align to some of the timelines and the reality of that. And then secondly, start looking at some of the opportunities, right? Obviously, I've done a lot of work through SBIR, STTR, non-dilutive capital. I will say that it's not as good or as bad as some people might make it out to be, but it is a tool in your toolbox, and so you need to
Right.
start understanding those tools and how to effectively leverage them to start building your beachheads into various customer or user organizations.
Yeah, well said. I love that. It's never as bad or as good as you think it's going to be. It's a great
Exactly.
point. I could think that could be across all the startup
Yes.
spectrum. It's never going to be as bad or as good as you think it's going to be.
Yes.
That's really good. So, can you talk a little bit more about that 1 hour of BD?
Sure.
Like, I would love for you to just hit on like briefly, like some of the things you work through with startups.
Yeah, so during our launchpad sessions, it's an hour ish. I say ish because full transparency. If you come in person, I teach the in person session, so I usually will roll out a whiteboard and we'll sit there and answer questions until someone yells at me to go do like what I'm paid to do. Um, and so with that, right, first half of that program will really be an introduction into what Sitter is.
Hmm.
So what are the different phases? How do I navigate? Obviously a lot of what I do is colored through the DoD and particularly the DAF, so the
Hmm.
Department of Defense and the Department of the Air Force, because that's my background. However, there are 11 federal agencies out there that answer SBIR, STTR, or leverage this vehicle. So understanding, hey, I don't have to start in the DoD or I don't have to end up in the DoD long term. How do I navigate that? Some of the things of what we mean when we say dual use, or what we mean by like how you're evaluated, right? Talking about what's your military utility, your
Hmm.
commercialization, and your technical feasibility, what we really mean, and then what that evaluation process looks like, kind of on the inside of the fence of what, hey, I'm getting a proposal. How am I going through it? What am I thinking? And that's baked off my real experience of doing that. And then the second half is some strategy, right? So we talk about, hey, how to effectively navigate the DoD. Customer discovery is like the thing that I like to teach the most. So I'll literally throw up the patches like on the board, like I'll put up the ranks, I'll throw the badges up there. Because if you're
How it
trying to
all
sell,
connects,
yeah,
like
we'll
that
do all
crinkly
that.
feet.
Yeah. So if you're selling to the military, like if
Yeah.
you see someone in uniform, that's the only customer I know that will actually wear their resume. And if you can read that resume, you know who you're talking to on the other end. So I pull all of that up there. We'll answer questions, give you the real of all that. And then when you end, we'll actually give you a set of resources. So you'll get emailed a set of resources, include our PEO roadmaps across the services, research that we've done, see what the different organizations are interested in, the
Hmm.
ability to book one-on-one time with me or the rest of my team. And then as well, of course, like selfish plug, we'll send you the Luma link so you can see all of the partner events and things like that we're doing as well.
Hmm. That's fantastic. Can you, I mean, dive in a little bit deeper? I love the resume. They wear their resume. Can you
Mhm.
do like a quick high level, like, especially from a space perspective? Like you
Yeah.
think about space work. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So a couple things there, right? So very often, if you're familiar with Cyber Sitter and you're trying to go through the DoD, you hear about customers, you hear about users, et cetera. I add a third flavor to that in funders being your works organization. So
Hmm.
AFWorks, SpaceWorks, et cetera, right? Because they're funding or actually bringing the money to the table via SBI or STTR. Very quick thing, right? Like if I am out at a trade show or I'm talking to people, if I
Hmm.
see anyone on the enlisted, kind of rank structure, like likely they are a user. So those are folks I want to be asking customer discovery questions about how are you using this or where you're connected.
Hmm.
On the officer side, if I'm selling to a customer, well, the entirety of the acquisitions workforce, the 6.2s and 6.3s, those are officers. And that's not a thing to say like enlisted is this and officer is that. Modern military hierarchy structure, like we have enlisted that have PhDs or and are 10 times smart as I was as an officer, and it's a very evolving career field. So I will say, I will caveat, don't overlook your enlisted folks, because very often they are your influencers and your champions, and they know how the real works. But
Hmm.
on the acquisition side, your customers, so whoever's signing that MOU,
Hmm.
likely is going to be a customer. We're typically looking at an O 05, maybe an O 06. So if I can recognize the ranks, I know who I'm talking to. If I can recognize the badges, I can recognize what are the specific tool sets that those folks see. So if you see space wings, or what we affectionately refer to as spings, well, that means that person has operational time, right? So they've actually sat on console. That might be someone that I usually identify as like a super user or super customer, because they understand the operational need. They also understand how to particularly get funding, or what are different opportunities, or maybe they even have the ability to obligate funding. Likewise, if you see someone who has Spings and like an acquisitions badge and you can recognize those, you're talking to someone who probably has some of that, je ne sais quoi, but that senior level leadership where they're going to be able to either sign a customer memorandum or make the right
Mhm.
introduction, or let you know, hey, maybe I got fallout money, maybe I don't. And
Mm,
then likewise, right? If you can recognize the badges, you'll see what mission set, what deltas they represent,
mhm.
or you can see where they fit in the hierarchy. So if you see someone with like a garrison badge, which is like a hexagon, that's like base support. So that might not be the person that you want to talk to if you're selling like a satellite system.
Right.
All of these things help you kind of qualify both your customer and your user as you go into these conversations.
That was great. Thank you. I appreciate that. I think
Yeah.
that just the quick overview is so helpful. I would love to talk to you about what kind of tech you're seeing like requested. Like what kinds of things are getting funding and what kinds of things do you think people should be building to get funding?
That's a great question. So I'm a big jeans and shovels guy. Always kind of have been. I do really like companies that are willing to work with other providers. And so what I mean by like boots and shovels, like things like ISAM or OSAM, or manufacturing space, or
Right.
any of those kind of like refueling. I really like those. Things that you're seeing, I'll use some of the buzzwords, right, of what we're looking out here for. So, moving without regret is a big thing.
Okay.
So how do we exist on orbit, stay on orbit, and how do we make, data-driven decisions on
Hmm.
whether or not we need to move an object, things like that. Responsive space as well, right? So if something happens on orbit, how do we react to that?
Hmm.
Um, I think with that as well, we're seeing a lot more around like true data detection. So one thing I will say, don't send me. Well, two things don't send me. Don't send me AI proposals, like AI proposal software. Like there's millions of those. Don't those aren't revolutionary. As soon as I say that, someone's going to come out with a revolutionary one. I know how this
Yeah.
works. Um, and then secondly, if you're going to do space domain awareness, like you need to take it a step further. 5, 6 years ago, it was putting like a green orbit around a thing and giving us some visualization. You
Hmm.
really need to start getting into object detection, things like that. So, to answer your question, things that kind of unlock us going further, or staying into space are great. And things that make it to where we really enhance space as like a warfighting domain, I think are things that you're going to see a lot more traction with. To give you context, the cohorts that we've seen, first one was TAC-RS, tactically responsive space. Second was alternative PNT, so position,
Mm,
navigation, timing. Third
right.
one was digital spaceport of the future, and we are currently in, as of right now, as of today, about 10 weeks into sustained space maneuver. So those are the current cohorts we're seeing, and these are specific topic phase 2 challenges backed by program offices.
So, how does one get into your accelerator program?
Great. So I already told you I don't charge you anything. I don't take equity. Do a lot of resources for you. The catch is that you need to come through the challenge process. So the
Mhm.
way that the challenge process works, a program office essentially leans forward with a problem statement. We host what is called a challenge definition workshop. It's 2 days of design thinking, right? So very much this is at the bridge. This is at our facility. You'll come in. You'll participate. It's very much like a real time in person sources sought. And so you'll whiteboard, you'll inform the solicitation. We'll take that feedback from the broader like industry ecosystem, and that'll
Mhm.
form the RFP. And then so you'll answer it. It'll be a specific topic. So customer memorandums are usually not part of that process if it's a
Mhm.
specific topic, but you'll answer that. It's up to $2 million in funding currently, and then you'll execute. So what you'll see is this is at least on the company side, it's a little bit longer on the government side as we're staffing all of that. But on the company side, it's about a 3, 4 month process from challenge definition workshop to solicitation on the street to award notification and then into contracting.
Okay. And since we're kind of rapid firing, because I love how how you just answer so quickly. It's amazing. I talk fast anyway, so it's like I find my match, and it's like, all right, we can do this interview in
I'm
like 15
trying.
minutes.
I'm just
I love
just
it.
riffing.
What are some common misconceptions about working with the government?
I think the biggest, well, there's a lot. I gotta make sure I answer this where I don't get in trouble because I would like to continue my job.
Yes.
Um, there's a couple things. One of the biggest things I see, at least early stage founders like fumble with, is that the very first thing they tell me to go, I want to sell to the DoD. And my
Mhm.
first question is who? And they go, well, the Air Force. And I go, who? And they're like, well, like you have to get that down to like a butt in a seat, like for real.
Yeah.
And that's very important because you need to do some of that persona development and really understand how someone's going to use it.
Hmm.
Second crux I see is that folks hyper focus on the first customer or that first beachhead. And if you were to like look at enterprise sales, let's say you're selling like a B2B like SaaS tool, you're not
Hmm.
just going to like sell to Google or Microsoft and then like that's it. I'm done with my company, right? It's very similar within the DoD, right? So you need to, you may start working with like remote sensing, and then
Hmm.
things change or funding changes or new mission sets emerge. And then maybe you're starting to work with like combat power projection or BMC3 or these other organizations. So you need to make sure that you're consistently and constantly doing that customer discovery to find those new people, so you don't hyper focus on one. Now the flip side of that is sometimes people will hyper focus on one, get an award, and then like go kick rocks and like work on something. You can't do that either.
Yeah.
A lot of this early stage work, yes, you need to compete for contracts, and yes, you need to go through the solicitation, the evaluation
Hmm.
process. There's not really a way around that. But it's a lot of it's relationship driven. Like the phase 3 decision, like a contracting officer needs the justification, which is, hey, we think we can meet this work that we've already funded through an open competition through Sitter, right? But
Right.
like if you frankly as a firm are you're hard to work with, or you're not adding the value, or you're
Hmm.
late on your deliverables, or you're not doing your report, like that phase 3 decision, they're not going to necessarily leverage that justification to do that.
Hmm.
So those are three things I see very often. I will also say too is like this is the one I might get in trouble with a little bit is
We
that
can always edit it out.
no, it's fine. It's fine. It's true. What I would tell folks is, you see a lot of things out there around acquisition reform, and I will
Hmm.
not say that that is a bad thing. Any way we can go better, faster, and get capability to the warfighter is needed and is something that we should do. That being said, if you haven't gone through the process, like if you haven't gone through like FAR-based contracting,
Yeah.
understand the rules first before you try to break them, right? So always tell people like, have you read the FAR? Like I know things are scattered and it's hard to find information sometimes, but like go out there, read the FAR. Seriously, like read the FAR. Like if you come to Launchpad session, I will tell you to read the FAR like 4 times. If
Hmm.
you have trouble sleeping tonight, read the FAR. Like it's not the best read in the world, but understand the rules before you start to apply new tactics
Hmm.
or things like that. So those are kind of the things where I really see people maybe stumble or fumble, and I think those are things that you should really think about as an early stage founder.
Hmm. Oh, that's really good. So we'll say, what are you currently reading? You should say the far. So that's always the question we end with. So we'll throw that out there. But I think I would love to hear you see founders day in and day out. What stands out as someone who is consistently successful, right? What types of things are they doing? I mean, we've touched on some of that, but I would love to hear your perspective since it's what you do.
Yeah, the biggest thing I think that folks need in this space is like grit, and that sounds like kind of the cliche like thing, like you got to be tough, but it's true. Like there are things that are out of your control, so you do have to kind of control your controllables, and part of that is your
Mhm.
grit. You're willing to like go for it. I often tell folks, especially if you're coming through Sitter, like as I mentioned, it's not as good as it's bad. There's humans on the other side that are evaluating. You're
Mhm.
not going to necessarily know who's evaluating you. And scores may be different. You have to keep doing this in home run baseball terms, like keep
Yeah.
getting at bat and keep taking swings. Those are the folks that I see are, probably the most successful. Second to that would be some of the coachability, right?
Mhm.
And that goes two fronts. Like one, be willing to take advice, but also be willing to like filter out some of the advice. Not all of it's going to be good. I might say, hey, this is what I think you should do, and you might be like, Drew, that's a terrible idea, and you go do your own way, and that's okay, right? So everyone kind of has an opinion. Just remember, you're kind of the steward of your own journey here.
Mm.
Very often, I'll talk to a founder and like, what should I do here? And I go, well, the nice part about being an entrepreneur is you get to pick that. And so, sticking in there, doing those kind of things, being open to feedback, and being flexible, right? I've seen companies walk into a meeting where the
Mhm.
customer's like, nah, we're not really interested in that. We're more like interested in this thing. And if you got hung up around the axle, like that would be it. But that company was
Yeah.
like, actually, no, like we want to go there. We thought you guys wanted this. They're
Mhm.
like, no, that's actually what we want, and they're able to walk away with a customer memorandum that ended up in a phase 2. So those are some of the kind of things that I see that I think folks really who are successful have to be able to do that, and also like learn to speak our language. if that makes sense. Like if
Mhm.
you are selling to the DoD, if you don't have DoD experience or like government contracting experience, it's not like a necessarily a bad thing. But
Mhm.
like talk to people who do, and or frankly selfish, but like hire veterans, bring them
Mhm.
onto your team, those kind of things, because you kind of need to be able to speak our language. I very often say like, you're not going to go to France and like try to sell into France if you can't speak French. Like,
Right?
so at least
Yes.
understand like those kind of things that we're talking about, and it will help you in the long run for sure.
Yeah, well said. Well, and you mentioned kind of commercialization strategy a
Yeah.
little bit, and you kind of touched on that. I would love for you to talk about not just the grants and cyber sitters, but what does it look like to kind of be a prime for or a sub, or how do you start to work with some of the big, the
Yeah.
military industrial complex?
Yeah. So there's a couple ways you can do it, right? The DoD as a whole, and I'm speaking broadly here, we're not really in the business of buying like component level technologies. And again, that's one of those things I say that, and then someone's like, well, I have a component level technology and they bought it. I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, but for the most part, not really. We really want to do systems. Like we want to buy complete things. Like
Hmm.
you don't go to the car dealership and buy like the steering wheel usually, right? Like you want to buy the full car.
Yeah.
Very, very similar. And each individual service also does things different. Like some want to own the
Hmm.
whole process, some just want the data, some just want the decision. So you
Hmm.
kind of have to figure that out. But in that, right, if you're like a component level, you really need to start thinking about your integration. And what I mean by
Hmm.
that is like, how are you going to plug into one of these larger scale systems? That might be an acquisition, that might be, like a purchase agreement. So one, there's a couple different ways you could do it.
Hmm.
Probably what's the most common is that sub relationship. Many of the prime contractors have it, and I think someone has to quote me on this. I think it's like a 4% set aside on a lot of contracts
Yeah.
that need to be answered by small business.
Might
Sometimes
be
some
more
of the
now. The new
yeah, it
law
might be
that,
more now. Yeah.
yeah.
Someone fact check me on that one. But
Yeah.
there's a set aside within these larger scale DoD contracts for small businesses. And so, as I mentioned, you should always be doing customer discovery. You should always be
Right.
liaisoning with some of the larger folks in your industry to see, like, hey, are there opportunities for this?
Hmm.
Because for them to access those contracts and to access that funding, they need to have that set aside for you potentially as a small business. So that's an
Hmm.
avenue there. The other way I see is mentor protege relationships, right? And so these have ebbed and flowed. Sometimes they're more popular, sometimes they're not. But the way the mentor protege relationship works, it's a little bit different. You're more doing this effort together,
Hmm.
where you as a small are able to leverage the experience and expertise of the large, whereas they're able to get some other contracting opportunities or be able to leverage your technology to answer that particular contract solicitation. That's another way to do it. And then if you're small and you're looking at Cyber Sitter, you can always partner with other firms in that prime sub
Right.
relationship as well. So
Mhm.
we very often say prime, meaning like the big boys out there. But that doesn't mean that you could also just be the prime on the contract with plenty of subs underneath you and things like that
Mhm.
as well.
Mhm. Well said. Yes. So this is amazing. And we always keep it short, which is great. This is a lot of information, like packed into 20 minutes. I would love to just, is there anything that you want to say that you haven't said that you feel like might be relevant for the audience, knowing we have founders and funders listening?
The biggest thing I think, foot stomp, like Cyber Sitter is not as good or as bad as people say. Um, I think it is probably still the best vehicle to get your foot in the door of working with the DoD. Like
Mhm.
it's great. If you are a founder, what I would say
Mhm.
is start with trying to find and solve that problem, right? Figure out what that problem is. Do your customer discovery, be willing to pivot early on.
Mhm.
If you're a funder, right, really help amplify how that founder has access to other folks within the ecosystem. A lot of the role that we play, and maybe I'm a bad capitalist. I do work at a nonprofit, so but is bringing down the walls, right? I want folks to know who are the different players in the ecosystem, and this is very, very small ecosystem, like very,
Mhm.
very small.
Yeah.
And so you'll consistently bump into folks, so just be a good steward of it. Like on the government side, we always talk about being good stewards of taxpayer dollars. Be good stewards of the ecosystem as well. Like, so make sure that
That's a
we're
great
all
point.
kind of connecting, sharing deals, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Stewarding relationships. That's a great
Yeah,
point.
absolutely.
It's like once you open a door and if it doesn't go well or if you don't treat it well, then that door doesn't open for you anymore.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
important. Yeah, no, well said. And we've talked about the FAR, but what are you currently reading that's really
Uh,
interesting to you?
it's a great question. All right, so I'm sure most defense tech founders will say things like the kill chain or like I'm gonna say hangry. Hangry. Yeah, it's by I have to look at it. It's by Mike Evans. He's the founder of Grubhub. And so it's shaped a lot. I think I really like it because two fronts. One, it's told from the lens of him building Grubhub, and then secondly, him reflecting post his exit. As someone who has built a lot of things, I really resonate with the fact he's like, I basically got really mad and that I couldn't order a pizza and made this thing. Very similar. I got very mad that I couldn't get technology to my friends, so I started doing a lot of this work. And then flip side of it, he makes a point in the book talking about restaurant row, the concept like you think like you have one restaurant, if you put another restaurant next to it, they're going to cannibalize each other's business, but it's the opposite, right? It becomes restaurant row and starts attracting people. It's very much the state that I take out here. We have a great ecosystem in Los Angeles and California. I'm just trying to bring everybody here. Same thing. Like I want to know what my friends in New Mexico and Texas and Florida are doing as well, so that we can get founders and technology in the hands of that warfighter and get them through this ecosystem. So highly recommend. I do not have an affiliate code, so I cannot give you an affiliate code or anything like that, but highly recommend that one
I'll
as well.
link everything in the description, and I'll also link your Launchpad and some of the
Cool.
amazing things that you're doing.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for your time. This was
Yeah.
fantastic. I'm excited to get this interview out, so I think it's going to help a lot of people. So thank
Sweet.
you.
I hope so. Yeah. No worries. Thanks for having me. It's fun.